Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at some more stuff from the Oerth's Opus Omnibus. This is a little booklet I put together a few years ago of various house rules, and today we're going to take a look at some of the first and second level magic user spells that I put in this thing. The idea was to take some of the rules that we've been floating around in our campaign and that have been primarily in my head and go ahead and put them on a piece of paper so that anybody between games could take a look at them. I gave a copy of each of this to each of my players, and it's served us really well. It's at our table every time, along with Unearthed Arcana and DMG and Player's Handbook. Today we're going to take a look at some spells I adapted from 3rd edition, specifically out of this book. I'll explain where this book came into our game and why I felt the need to clean them up for 1st edition. Also want to mention, I do have a Patreon going. It's to help to grow and improve the channel. If you can help out, that'd be fantastic. I do want to continue making videos at the level I've been making them. That is, many a week. But this takes a lot of time. The research takes up a lot of time. And I have to be able to have the time to do it, so that's part of what the Patreon's about. I am thinking of adding a couple of videos a month that are going to be Patreon only. Let me know your thoughts on that, and if so, what topics you'd like those videos to be on. But back to today's topic, Oerth's Opus Omnibus, a look at the first set of spells. A 3rd edition spellbook? How blasphemous. Well, what happened was, one night we were playing in the early 2000s, probably shortly after this book was published. Roy, one of my players, came in. He said, by the way, I've picked a lot of my magic user spells for he was playing an MU, picked a lot of my magic user spells for tonight out of this book. Is that a problem? I'd never even seen the book before. So naturally my response was, sure, we'll figure it out as we go. We proceeded to play the game. He pulled out a couple spells I'd never heard of before. We made a few on-the-spot rulings. We agreed to some of the weakening of the spell or strengthening the spell, as the case may be, to fit our campaign. And then from there, we continued to use the book. Well, everybody else got excited about it. So I went ahead and I bought a copy myself. And after a while, I took some of those popular spells and I wrote them up in our own little treatise, which is Oerth's Opus Omnibus. These are just little flyers that came with the Monstrous Compendiums. I just used them as page breaks and as the cover. So here we're going to take a look at the 1st and 2nd level spells that became available courtesy of the Spell Compendium, the 3rd edition Spell Compendium. Each of these spells is straight out of the 3rd edition Spell Compendium. I claim no ownership of any of these, nor are these original to me. These are simply 1st edition D&D adaptations of existing 3rd edition spells, and the spells were created by WotC and are owned by them. I am only doing this to show a way that you can take some stuff that isn't in your game or isn't even the same game system, and then just with a little bit of work, adapt and modify it and have it work as your own. These spells are set up alphabetically by level, a la the way the 1st edition books were done. So you have to know the level to find the spell. There is no index for this because, it's just something I whipped up. So the first spell is benign transposition. 1 segment casting time. It's 2 willing creatures up to large size. 2 target creatures, of which you can be 1, instantly swap positions. Both subjects must be within range, and the range is 60 feet plus 10 feet per level. Objects carried by the creatures up to the creature's maximum loads go with them, but other creatures do not, even if they are carried. The movement is instantaneous. So it's a real good way if you've got, say, a fighter who's really torn up, he's in melee, he's about to drop, and you've got another fresh fighter further up the hallway. Well, it's a good way to go ahead and swap the weakened one for the fresh one. That was the first idea I had for it. My players have used it to good effect, getting across a chasm, for instance. The thief was able to climb along the wall, get to the other side. Then he and the magic user just swapped places, and then the thief climbed back. So it's kind of benign, as the name says, benign transposition, but it has found some uses. Next one is Familiar Pocket. We do have a few familiars in our campaign, and the problem usually is keeping the familiar unseen or alive. This creates a special non-dimensional space in any of your pockets, and the familiar fits inside, and it has an hour's worth of breathable air if you close the pocket. And the familiar is essentially safe. I mean, if the pocket is destroyed, the garment is lit on fire, then the familiar is expelled from the pocket. So it's not invulnerable to anything, but it's kind of nice. And then as a free action, you can call the familiar forth, or it can leave the space on its own. It's just a good way to hide the fact that that black cat on your shoulder is actually your familiar, Agatha Harkness. One thing I do want to state, we did add a few things from 3rd edition to our 1st edition campaign, one of them being a free action. The only change there was we actually gave it a name. We've always allowed 0-time things, shouting a warning, that kind of stuff. It's just in 3rd edition, they called it free action, and we adopted that as well. And now another thing we adopted from 3rd edition, types of damage, basically the types of energy in D&D. Acid, cold, electricity, fire, and sound. Those are the 5 energies, if you will, that 3rd edition D&D has. I adopted this into my campaign because I thought it quantified things very nicely. I like being able to say, you have a ring on, and that ring is protection from icky noises, and you are now +2 saving throw, -2 per die damage against sound attacks. It was a great way to boil down and limit some of the protections. I just like it, and it is something that we adapted from 3rd edition. We also took dark vision. I love the idea of dark vision as opposed to just infravision. Creatures that live in the dark 24/7, they get dark vision. So basically the Orb of Acid Lesser, it's a level 1 spell, verbal semantic casting, 1 segment casting time, 20 feet plus 5 feet per level. 1 Orb of Acid. There is no saving throw, but there is magic resistance against this. I listed magic resistance, yes or no, on each of the spells simply because that got a little confusing, and magic resistance has been around since I've been playing AD&D, but it has always been one of the less understood things. And when you're fighting things like Drow, anything like that that has innate magic resistance, it's really important to know if MR is applicable to the spell or not. So the Orb of Acid, 2 inches across, shoots from your palm at its target, dealing 1d8 points of damage. For every 2 caster levels beyond the first, your orb deals an additional 1d8 points of damage. So 2d8 at 3rd level, 3d8 at 5th, 4d8 at 7th, etc. Each of these, the Orb of Acid, Orb of Cold, Orb of Electricity, Orb of Fire, and Orb of Sound, are all the exact same spell, just using each of the 5 energies. One interesting thing that 3rd edition did do is they had some spell visual effects, if you will. In this one, your quick, precise movements culminate in your open palm facing your target. An orb of dark green acid flies from your hand. I liked that idea. They were right there in front of me. All I had to do was retype the things, so I kept them. So our next few spells are all the same, just using cold, electricity, fire, or sound. These are very popular at our table. They give decent damage, but it's not overwhelming damage. And of course, the limits I just discussed in the type of energy. Our next first edition, or first level spell, is Portal Beacon. Mentally marking the appearance and location of the portal, you implant that knowledge into others, allowing them to be drawn to the portal like a lodestone to metal. 1 gate, it lasts for 6 turns per level, so it's 1 hour per level. And basically you alter a magical gate or portal so it sends out a mental beacon for up to 6 creatures, including yourself if you choose. This basically draws the creatures to the portal. So you're in that dungeon and you're the magic user and you found the way out through this magical arch. You can't stay because big monster is going to kill you. You throw portal beacon, you jump into the portal, and now you're confident that the portal beacon has gone off and the other members of your party, up to 5 others, will know where the portal is. They'll be able to find it, provided that they move kind of quick. Now granted, portal stuff doesn't come up real early at low levels, but this was a first level spell in that book, and there frankly isn't much portal stuff in AD&D, so I went ahead and I included this one. It's come in handy a couple of times. Next one up, another damage spell for first level, is Ray of Flame. 20 feet plus 5 feet per level. A burning ray shoots out of at the target from your upturned palm. The sound of crackling fire follows the ray's path. Deals 1d6 points of damage per 2 caster levels with no save. So it's basically an improved Burning Hands. But the neat thing is the target must make a save or catch fire, taking 3d6 of fire damage each round for the next 2 rounds. So even if you roll a 1 on the damage, he does get a save. If he fails that save, he'll take another 3d6 for the next 2 rounds. So even low damage here can hurt him and keep him occupied. Next up is Sonic Blast. The words of your spell twist upon each other and grow stronger. Then like a cluster of bees, they streak toward your target and detonate in a screaming bellow around him. You blast the target with loud and high-pitched sounds. The subject takes 1d4 points of damage, sonic damage, per 2 levels. Spell has no effect if cast in the area of a silent spell. So again, just some nice damage spells. A little bit to beef up the power of the first level MU. I've had some people comment on my channel that I seem to favor beefing up lower level MUs, and the only thing I can say to that accusation is spot on. Absolutely right. I get tired of first level MUs being one-hit wonders. They throw the spell and then they hide behind the fighters the rest of the night. I've played that. It's boring. I've carved 3 or 4 hours out of my busy week in order to play some D&D. I want to cast more than one spell. So yeah, that's my thought on it. I've tried to do the same for clerics, but actually clerics weren't as bad a position since they're essentially backup fighters. So now we get to the second level spells, and this is baleful transposition. Basically, 2 creatures of up to large size, and they can be unwilling. So 2 target creatures, of which you must be 1, instantly swap positions. Solid objects such as the ground, a bridge, or a rope must connect the creatures. Both subjects must be within range. Objects carried by the creatures up to the creature's maximum load go with them, but other creatures do not, even if they are carried. The movement is instantaneous. If either creature succeeds in a save, the spell is negated, but the target save at -2. This is kind of neat if you have a situation, again, you're in the chasm, you've got the chasm and the bad guys, there's 2 ogres on the other side of the chasm, and you need to get over there. Well, you can simply tag one of the ogres and yourself, and you can pop over and be on the other side of the chasm, and then kill the remaining ogre. Any number of ways that this one's helpful. The fact that it can be unwilling targets makes this a much more powerful spell. You are 3rd level before you even have a chance at it, but it is pretty sweet. This one I liked a lot. Baylor Nimbus. Again, level 2. I kept to the casting time being essentially whatever the level was, just like AD&D does. Lasts for 1 round per level. There's no save, but you do get MR. You smash the soot against your flesh and intone the ancient dark words. Like the legendary Baylor, your body bursts into lurid flames. The flames created by the spell do not harm you or any equipment you carry or wear. Each round, the flames deal 6d6 of fire damage to any opponent, any creature grappling you, or any creature you grapple on your turn. So, good thing to use against, say, a roper. You can go ahead and flame on and give him 6d6 points of damage with no saving throw. Battering Ram. This is essentially a magic user spell that gives you a lot of the powers of a Ring of the Ram. I love the Ring of the Ram. I like that this spell exists. So it's 2 segment casting time, 20 feet plus 5 feet per level. 1 object or creature, you point the shard of the carved ram's horn at your foe and snap off the last words of the spell. An invisible wedge of force slams into the creature's midsection, doubling it over and driving it back. You create a ram-like force that can strike with considerable power. The force can target a creature or an object. The force deals 1d6 points of damage for every 2 caster levels to this object. Small and medium creatures are knocked back 1 foot for every 2 points of damage. So if I do 10 points of damage, I knock them back 5 feet. Large creatures are knocked back 1 foot for every 4 points of damage. So again, my 10 point damage output there would knock him back 2 feet. If the subject is a movable object, such as a door, you can make a strength check at strength 21 to attempt to force open the door or damage destroy the object. Very useful spell. Sees a lot of use at our table. If anything, I think this one's a little OP. But since it hasn't really disrupted anything, I haven't done anything about it. Next up is Blast of Force. Drawing upon magic in its purest form, you send positive planar energy whistling through the air to batter your foe. Blast of Force does 1d6 points of damage per 2 caster levels to the target. Undead take 1d6 per caster level. There is no save for half damage. So, pretty good. It ends up being, with no save for half damage, ends up being the equivalent of a fireball, but it's a single target. Combust. 2nd level spell. 2 segment again. Creature touched. You rub the oil against the flint and murmur the ancient words, touching your target. It immediately smolders, then bursts into bright flames. Makes combustible object or creature's combustible equipment burst into flames, even if damp. If the target is a creature, the initial eruption of flames causes 1 to 8 points of damage per caster level with no saving throw. If the target is combustible, unattended object, the initial eruption of flame deals fire damage to the object as noted above. Object catches fire and takes 1 to 6 points of fire damage each round until consumed or someone puts the fire out. It's pretty good. I like this because it's limited because you have to touch your target. But if you do touch it, it gets 1 to 8 points of damage per caster level with no saving throw. So this ends up being a very powerful spell, even at moderate levels. Discern Shape Changer. I'm not going to read this whole big thing. I don't have the description. Oh, that's interesting. Basically, you can see through to the true form of any creature within 60 feet. You can each one creature per round, and this lasts 1 round per level. You can see if it's a shape changer in true form, you immediately sense its shape-changing ability, but you can't determine what other forms it might be capable of assuming. If it's someone in mundane disguise, a wig, and a putty nose and things like that, you can see them in their true form. A wizard who knows alter self is not a shape changer, since the spell is not supernatural extraordinary, but a barghest is. So in this case, what I meant to say here is a wizard who knows the spell but has not cast on himself is not a shape changer. So if I have the shape change spell, but I've not cast it on myself, then I would not come up under this spell. But if I have cast it on myself, this spell would certainly call me out. Fire burst. See, I like fire a lot. With a grand circular gesture, the air around you fills with flame. An instant later, the fire explodes outward, engulfing everything close to you. Fire burst causes a powerful explosion of flame to burst from you, damaging everyone within 10 feet of you. All creatures and objects in that area except for you take 1 to 8 points of damage per caster level. Save is allowed for half damage. And you got to remember, this 10-foot radius, but it's everything in a 10-foot radius. If you're standing next to that fighter, he takes it too. Portal Alarm. This one lasts 12 turns per level, so 2 hours per level. You cast a tiny bell at the portal, and it rings as you finish the last gesture of the spell. With the completion of the spell, the bell vanishes in midair, but continues to ring for a few moments more. Basically, it gives you an alarm anytime a creature, tiny or larger, passes through the gate. You can decide the time of mental casting, whether the portal alarm will be mental or audible. So if you want the entire party to hear it, for whatever reason, there's a portal in a room that you're occupying, you want to be sure nothing surprises you out of it, this is a good one to throw on there. And then it can be a mental that would only awaken you and let you know what's going on, or something that just screams, hey, there's something coming. This next one, I debated a very long time whether to even include. Quick Potion. Casting time is 1 turn, and it's a flask of water, and it lasts 6 turns per level, so 1 hour per level. You mutter the last of the spell's words and then wave your fingers over the flask. Copper sparks drop from your fingertips and suffuse the water with a deep rusty shade. As the sparks dissolve fully, you begin casting your next spell. So you transform the water in a flask into something that is capable of storing a spell. On your next turn, you cast that spell, and it turns into a potion of that spell. Now, it's got to be spells suitable for making of potions can be used this way. So, for instance, flight. If I want to create a fly spell, or use a fly spell and make it into a potion, I could. Now, it doesn't say how long it lasts in potion form before consumed. I have the clock running at 6 turns per level. That is the total life of the potion before its consumption and after its consumption. So 6 turns per level is 1 hour, so you have to be at least 3rd level to cast this. That's 3 hours of life of that potion/potion effect. If somebody were to drink that right away, they would have the effect of the potion for 6 turns per level. It's a neat way to kind of create an on-demand immediate potion. It doesn't say that the spell being cast has to be one that the magic user knows, so I would allow some healing spells to be cast into this, like a cure light wounds or even a cure serious wounds, because there are potion analogs to that, potion of healing, potion of extra healing. I know they're not exactly the same, but it's a DM's call and I've allowed it. Our next spell on the list is Ray of Ice. Level 2 goes out to 20 feet plus 5 feet per level, 2-segment casting time. Saving throw is a little special. It says, a cyan ray springs from your fingertips. You shudder with cold as the ray leaves your hand. You launch a ray of numbing cold at your enemy. The ray deals 1d6 points of cold damage per 2 caster levels with no save. Target must save or be frozen to the ground with his feet encased in ice. This doesn't cause extra damage, it just limits their mobility. Frozen creature cannot move, receives no dexterity bonus to AC, and incurs -2 penalty on attack rolls. A creature can free itself in a successful bend bars roll. Now, it's important to note that the MR prevents all of the effects from bothering it. The MR will save it from the freezing damage. It will also save it from the freezing effect of its feet going to the ground. And the last spell we have is Scorch. Level 2, 2-segment casting time, range is 0. Area of effect is a 30-foot line, 10 feet wide. A jet of roaring flame bursts from your outstretched hand, scorching any creature in its path. Scorch deals 1d8 points of damage per 2 caster levels to each target it hits. Again, no saving throw, but it's 1d8 per 2 levels. Scorch is just a big boy version of Burning Hands. And then we go to the 3rd level spells, which I'll cover in a future video. This is about 21 spells that I adopted, again, out of the Spell Compendium from 3rd edition. I believe D&D is where you find it. I have adapted TV shows, movies, episodes of Kolchak. Big fan of Kolchak. There are a lot of stuff you can get. There's a lot of stuff you can get from a lot of different places. I am not too proud to pick from just about anywhere. I even took some D&D elements from the movie Ice Pirates. I know a lot of people have done that. It's just not my favorite movie. So, again, I don't claim ownership of these spells. I did not create these spells. I simply adapted them into 1st edition use. I'd like to know what you think. If these are spells that you might use in your campaign, I'd be interested in finding out. If you have some spells that you've created or adopted, I'd be interested in finding out. So please leave comments below. Please remember the Patreon. If you liked what you saw and heard today, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time on page 121.